Hi everyone, and welcome to another OC Tanner webinar. My name is Carrie Higbee, and I'm with the communications team here at the OC Tanner Company. I'd like to thank you all for taking time out of your day to join us for today's live webinar, which is entitled, How to Build a Talent Magnet Culture. Today's presentation will last approximately 45 minutes with about 10 minutes or so at the end for questions. Please send your questions through the Q&A option on your screen, and any questions we don't get to can be answered offline. Before we begin, I'd like to reiterate that today's presentation has been HRCI and SHRM certified for 1 hour of professional development credit. For those interested in receiving these credits, you will need to send an email requesting what certification you will need to the address listed at the end of this webinar. Allow up to 1 week to receive your certificate. Also, I'd like to ask that everyone on the line please mute your phone to help mitigate any phone interference or distractions for our speaker and the other listeners on the line. This presentation is being recorded and will be available on our blog along with a complete summary and all visuals by the end of this week. Without further delay, I'd like to introduce today's presenter, David Lapin. As the CEO of Lapin International Incorporated and author of Lead by Greatness, David Lapin has earned respect among international business leaders for his unique ability to identify a business's most current strategic opportunities and operational challenges, and at the same time, understand and unravel the complex dynamics of the human spirit. This ability, combined with his uncompromising position on growing revenue and maximizing profit, places him in the mastery category amongst international organizational advisors. David worked along some of South Africa's greatest business leaders who, together with Nelson Mandela and his government, transformed the country from apartheid to a vibrant democratic economy. He continued his groundbreaking work around the world, building self-driven, high-performing teams in environments of complex diversity. He was the founder of the South African Institute of Business Ethics, architect of the Code of Ethics for the King Commission on Corporate Governance, and the Institute of Directors for Southern Africa. It is now my pleasure to turn the call over to David.
Thank you, Carrie, and thanks to OC Tanner for making this WebEx possible. Welcome to all of you who are listening in and joining us today. I hope those of you that are in the United States had a great Thanksgiving weekend, a really appropriate time for us to be talking about appreciation, recognition, and reward, and other methods of inspiring higher levels of employee engagement. And in fact, it's when you build a culture that does inspire people, we're talking about something beyond engaging people, something that really inspires people to want to contribute, to want to make a difference. Your culture then becomes a talent magnet for the type of people you want and need. And we'll be talking today a little bit about how to do that and what the key components are of that talent magnet culture. In building a talent magnet culture, it's important to grasp that the company of the future differs from anything we've known in the past. In the past, the company owned assets, and we hired employees to manage the assets and extract value from them. But things are beginning to change already, and certainly in the future, as Jeff Colvin, the senior editor of Fortune magazine, said only a few weeks ago, 21st century companies employees own most of their assets because they are most of the assets. That's the shift in power, that the employer in a 21st century company doesn't have the level of power that he or she might have had in the past, because the people that you employ are the very assets you need to succeed. Think of some of the 21st century companies that we're all very familiar with. Apple is a manufacturing company, technically, but doesn't own any factories. Airbnb is a hospitality company, and it owns no hotels, it owns no property. And Uber is a transport company, and it owns no vehicles. What do these companies have? They only have the people who work for them. And if you can imagine the people who work for Apple leaving Apple, and so with Airbnb and Uber and any one of these types of 21st century companies, you'll realize right away that at that point the company loses everything it's got. So no longer do we retain assets when people leave us. If people leave us, our assets leave us. And this power shift really constitutes a tectonic shift in what fuels an organization, in what really makes an organization work, what makes it function, what gives energy to its people. Because in the past, people would be motivated, if you think about it carefully, primarily by fear. Fear of loss of job, fear of loss of income, barriers to promotion, perhaps also by the incentive of wealth. But while these still play a part in motivation, that's not what inspires people. People are inspired by bigger and higher things. Firstly, at a Future of Work forum in October, a majority, if not everybody present, agreed that having purpose at work is one of the things that employees want the most. And a little bit earlier than that, Daniel Pink, in his book Drive, analyzes what were the main forces that compelled so many talented people to leave secure brick-and-mortar jobs in corporate America and go out to Silicon Valley and risk everything they had to begin to play with new technology and to try and build businesses, many of which failed. We know the great successes, of course. What was it that drove those people to do it? And you'll notice it wasn't money. It was the need for autonomy, an urge to direct their own lives. It was what Daniel Pink calls mastery, the desire to get better and better at something that matters. They wanted to do something that matters. And purpose, yearning to do what they do in the service of something larger than themselves. So this idea of purpose, the desire to be in service of something bigger than me, the desire to be working on something that matters, is one of the factors that drove people at the beginning of the technology period and still drives people today, certainly the kind of talent that we all want to attract. And the second element that drives people, that inspires people, is appreciation. People want to be appreciated, and appreciating great work accelerates engagement significantly, as some Towers Watson research that O.C. Tanner circulated only last week revealed. There is a direct correlation between the way we appreciate people and the frequency with which we appreciate people and their levels of engagement. These two factors, inspiration, purpose, and appreciation, are closely linked. Purpose means that I'm doing something that matters to others. That's what a purpose is. My work is not just to generate wealth for shareholders. I'm actually making a difference in people's lives. The way I know that I'm making a difference is by feedback, the appreciation and recognition I receive. You know that we only appreciate people who make a difference. We don't appreciate people who work hard at things that don't matter and don't make any kind of a difference. So it's quite understandable that the way a person is appreciated provides them with the feedback they need to know that their work really matters. But now look at some of the gaps that this research highlighted. Firstly, only 7% of employees say their company is excellent at appreciating great work. Look at that opportunity. If the research shows that there is a direct correlation between appreciation and engagement, then appreciation becomes a lever of engagement. It's all very well that we measure engagement. We want to know and we need to know how engaged our employees are. But when you get your engagement figures back and you realize that as a manager you're not engaging your people as well as you could be, what are you supposed to do about that? How do you change those levels of engagement? What are the levers of employee engagement? And one of the levers is appreciation. And since only 7% of employees feel appreciated, there's an incredible opportunity to move that lever, to increase that number, and with that, to significantly move the engagement numbers. 56% of management say their company is above average at appreciation, which means management doesn't understand the gap. Management doesn't understand that they're not pushing the levers and that they're not moving the needle of engagement on their dashboard in any way. And they must be frustrated. Why are our engagement figures low? Our engagement figures are low because you, management, believe that you're showing appreciation, but your employees are not experiencing it. They're not feeling it. Employees want some form of recognition every 7 days, once a week or so. They want some form of recognition. They want to be noticed. They want their work to be noticed. They want the difference that they make to be noticed. They want to be told that they matter and their work matters. Whereas the majority of leaders recognize employees once a quarter or less. That's where we begin to see this amazing opportunity for a talent magnet culture. We know what talent truly yearns for, and we know we can provide it to them. It doesn't cost anything to appreciate people. We're not even talking here about tangible recognition and reward. We're just talking about intangible recognition, which doesn't cost anything. And yet most managers just don't do it. 7% of people say their company is excellent at appreciating their work. 12% of the people say they receive frequent appreciation for great work, but the majority by far of employees aren't experiencing that at all. And if you look at where it lies, people's sense of there is enough appreciation, at a senior management level, 56% say they're recognizing frequently and sufficiently. Middle management, it's down to 35%. But down at an employee level, it's only 23% that believe their company is above average at appreciation. Not even excellent, just at above average. So the opportunity here for HR professionals particularly, whether working in a large or a small corporation, becomes key. Because both purpose, which is a lever of inspiration, and appreciation, which is a lever of engagement, are areas of influence of the HR professional. Wherever in HR you're working, and whatever size of a corporation, you can influence the purpose conversation, and we'll talk about how to do that, and you can influence the way employees feel about appreciation. More than ever, HR professionals are at the center stage of a company's strategic thinking and objectives. No strategy can be fully effective if it doesn't include a way of truly attracting talent. And key to that talent attraction is going to be purpose and appreciation. Let's start talking a little bit about purpose. Purpose is the factor that, together with appreciation, employees want most. But in addition to this fact that employees crave and yearn for appreciation and for a sense of purpose, purpose is foundational to the architecture of the 21st century company for another two reasons. Firstly, purpose cuts across all silos of an organization because purpose is the answer to the why question. Why are we in this business? Why are we working for this company? What is this company here to do? Those are the why questions, the answers to which are purpose. That why question is asked about the structure. Why is this our structure? It asks about our process and operations. Why do we do things this particular way? It's asked about the way we finance our organization and our financial strategy. It's asked about the technology platforms that we use. And it's asked about the people that we recruit, that we hire, that we promote, that we develop. That why question is asked in every silo. And the beauty of purpose, and perhaps the most important aspect of purpose, is that the answer to that why question needs to be the same in each silo. The why question is the purpose of our existence. And structure should be our structure because of our purpose. The reason we do things the way we do in operations is because of our purpose. And so with finance, technology, and the way we lead our people. Because purpose is far more than an intellectual question of, hey, why are we doing this? It is the single most important component of new strategic thinking. And in this idea of new strategic thinking, I'm going to be introducing you to an idea that we call distinction. And I'm going to explain what distinction means. But it's important to appreciate that purpose as a driver of distinction is at the essence of why firms exist. As Hirotaka Takuechi says, professor of management in Harvard Business School, so this is a man whose focus is strategy, his focus is delivery, his focus is growth of companies and organizations. There is nothing mushy about it. It is pure strategy. So when we're talking about purpose, we're getting to the essence of what drives the company and what inspires people to work in the company. When we talk about distinction, it's very different from another term that you're fully conversant with and very familiar with, which is competitive advantage. Competitive advantage has been the driver of strategic thinking for many decades. But competitive advantage focuses leadership's attention on competitors. 21st century companies are focused on customers. Their competitors are hardly relevant to their strategies if their strategies are focused on their distinction. If you really are concerned with what distinguishes you as an organization, what makes you different and unique and able to do things for people that nobody else can do in quite the same way, then what the competition is doing becomes less relevant. Your focus is, how do I change the lives of the people I serve, of my customers? And there's a fairly widespread recognition that this idea of competitive advantage is no longer relevant. And in fact, it's the lack of relevance of competitive advantage that has caused companies to survive for shorter periods of time. So if you look even at time, this is a delightful visual showing that human lifespans have been increasing as we've gotten better and better at health and medicine, but companies' lifespan has reduced. What is distinction? So here's a dictionary definition of distinction. What does the word really mean? It's recognizably different in nature from something else of a similar type. And here we're emphasizing this word in nature, because whereas competitive advantage generally comes from the things you do. So you do things in a particular way, you acquire certain assets, you capture certain markets and you dominate in those markets. You have certain positions in those markets, you produce a certain product using a specific technology. But all of those are extraneous. Those are all differences and advantages that you have acquired from outside, you have gained. And since they're extraneous, since they come from the outside, your competitors can acquire them too. And as technology and communication and globalization has become so much more efficient, your competitors can acquire those assets, those differentiators, quicker than ever before. But if you look at what makes you different in your nature, what is different in your essence, what is different in the people that make your company, that are your company, what is different about the people who lead your company, then you're onto something that can't easily be copied by others. You're onto what distinguishes you, and that gives you a clear direction as to what the purpose of your organization is. Think of these two animals. You think of a leopard and a tiger. If a leopard wants to know what its purpose is, it can figure its purpose out from its distinction. Its purpose is to hunt in the trees, and it can work that out from what distinguishes it. It's distinguished by its spots, which camouflage it in leafy environments, whereas the tiger has stripes that camouflage it in grassy and reed environments. So if you look at what you have, who you are, at your essence, what makes you unique and different, what distinguishes you, you can work out from that what your purpose is. You can work out what your market is meant to be. You can work out how to build a distinct culture, how to design distinct products, how to pursue distinct markets. Because when a culture is purpose-centered and a strategy is purpose-driven, and it's the same purpose at both, it's the same purpose that is the center of the culture and the same purpose that drives the strategy, then distinction manifests. If you look at purpose in that way, it inspires people. When people are inspired, they figure out the strategies. You don't have to tell them what to do. Inspired people work out what to do, and they work out innovative ways of doing things that the managers might never have thought of. The key is to inspire people, and people are inspired by a sense of purpose. And once they have a strategy that they know how they're going to go about things, they activate. They activate the strategy, and they activate the purpose. So that if you're able to build that type of an organization founded on purpose, where at the very core is the reason for our existence, we all know, we understand why it is that we exist. That inspires people. That inspiration drives strategy, and the strategy drives activation. That is an organization that attracts talent. That is a magnet for talent. That doesn't mean you're going to attract every person in the world. It means you're going to attract people who are passionate about what you stand for. You're going to attract people who identify with the purpose of your existence. And the beauty of a purpose-centered culture is that the culture doesn't have to be exactly the same all over the organization. We deal with a number of global organizations, and some of you listening in today are from such global organizations, where the culture in one part of the world is inevitably different from the culture in another part of the world. And we deal with complex organizations where the organization is active in very different ways in one part of the company, which might be focused on manufacturing, and another part of the company which might be focused on marketing and on sales. And the culture in a marketing environment is different from the culture in a manufacturing environment. The capacity to embrace a multifaceted culture and a multicultural culture, the capacity to embrace it rests on purpose, because it doesn't matter whether you're in China or you're in the United States or you're in Italy. It doesn't matter whether you're in marketing or you're in manufacturing or you're in design or in finance. You're driven by the same purpose. And purpose then becomes the glue that binds an organization, that holds an organization together and allows some flexibility in the culture. And when you've got a culture that is flexible yet founded on common purpose, that's when your culture becomes a talent magnet. And it's a talent magnet for winners, because winners want to associate with distinguished leaders, and they want to work for distinguished companies. They don't want to work for companies that do the same as any other company. They don't want to work for leaders that don't bring them something unique and different. They also want to make a unique difference. They want to do something that matters. They want to work in the service of something that is bigger than them. And that is distinction. When you've got an organization led by distinguished leaders, doing things for the world, doing things for customers that are different, that is distinction. But this distinction that flows from a purpose-driven strategy and a purpose-centered culture, so if you can picture it, and we'll get into the how-to in just a few moments, but if you can picture an organization that has a common purpose as its core, that is founded on common purpose, no matter where you go in the organization, anybody is able to tell you why this organization exists, what it's here to do, and anybody can explain to you in what way the work they do activates that purpose and makes it real. And you're getting the same understanding and the same insight from whatever part of the organization you're talking to. Then you have a distinguished company. You've got a company that is different, not just because it does different things, but because it is different at its essence. It's different in its very soul. But more than that, it also delivers results. And you might have heard in last month's webinar by O.C. Tanner, where Louis Efron spoke, and he mentioned some of the numbers that we have of purpose-driven companies and how much more effectively and fast they're able to grow than companies even in the good to great list by Jim Collins, and certainly the S&P 500. The difference is radical. The difference is not minor. When a company gets purpose right and truly distinguishes itself, when its people are inspired, and they're inspired not by the money they're paid, they're inspired by the recognition, the appreciation that they're shown for the difference they make. That type of inspired, distinguished organization is able to deliver results that exceed anything else in any other category. And we can confirm the reality of these numbers from the work that we've been doing with our clients across industries and across continents. It doesn't matter what industry we're working in, whether we're working in financial services or hospitality or manufacturing or retail or mining or technology, whether we're working in the United States or in Australia or in Africa or Asia. We get the same type of result. If we can get that purpose piece right, if we can build that culture around purpose and drive the strategy with purpose, we have a company that is uniquely distinguished, a company that can't be copied, and a company that can grow at these kind of rates compared to their peers that grow at a far more traditional rate than a purpose-driven company. So as an HR professional, more than anybody, you can ignite the purpose conversation. It doesn't mean that you can always take it all the way. The CEO has to be behind it, and leadership and management needs to be behind it. A lot of pieces need to be in place. But you can play a key part in beginning the process. And the beginning of the process is really a conversation, starting to get people to talk about the purpose question, to think about purpose, and you do that with the why question. And you can start asking the why question. You can ask the why question anywhere in the organization. You can ask the why question to anybody. People are challenged by a why question, and they enjoy the conversation that ensues. And irrespective of where in the company you're asking, you're looking for the same answer. You're looking for a commonality of purpose, which would be manifest in the fact that different people answer that why question in the same way, no matter where in the organization they're working. And so just by beginning those conversations in meetings and being able to say, we're talking about what we're doing, we're talking about how we're going to do it better, can we spend a few minutes on understanding why we're doing this or why we're choosing to do it in this particular way? And as people start becoming familiar with that way of thinking and with that why question, you will find purpose starting to infuse itself into the culture to the point where organizational readiness for the purpose work that makes it distinct and distinguished becomes manifest, and you'll be able to start identifying that the company, which maybe wasn't that ready for the purpose conversation previously, starts becoming ready quicker than you can imagine. And apart from the why question that you can ask all over the organization and seek common answer if possible, there are 4 very specific questions that you can ask in order to get the purpose conversation going. And these are the 4 questions. The first one, has my company articulated the higher and somewhat unique purpose of its existence? And this goes beyond its mission statement. This goes beyond growing and producing revenue for shareholders and just serving customers. What is it that you can do for people that others don't do in the same way or don't do it as well? What is it about your organization that is really key to who you are and to what you are as an organization that allows you to do something that others aren't able to do or aren't able to do as well as you? And so if you take the well-known companies, you see that over and again. In Apple Computers, for example, going back to Steve Jobs' days, to its founders' days, his ability to synthesize design and technology was something unique. It was something that personally drove him. He had a strong artistic bent, and he had a passion for technology, and he was able to synthesize design and technology in ways that others couldn't do. That was his passion. And he was able to infuse that into his organization and to attract people. That's the talent magnet, to attract others who had similar passions, to attract others who loved the synthesis between design and technology, and to attract people who challenged the status quo and wanted to do things a little differently. You had Herb Keller of the Southwest Airlines, also one of the organizations, often cited as an example of a purpose-driven company that grew and grows at the kind of numbers that we showed you just a few moments ago. Herb Keller was a fun kind of person, and he wanted there to be fun in the organization. He wanted people to be able to experience the fun of flying and to be entertained while they fly, which enabled him, because fun is cheap. Fun doesn't cost anything. You just need a certain type of employee. You need a certain type of flight attendant. And provided you're attracting that talent, you can make the trip, you can make the flight a little more fun for people so that they don't even notice that meals aren't being served and some of the other frills that are taken out of low-cost flying. So those are the things that you look for. When have we articulated the purpose of our existence? Have we looked at ourselves? What do we have that others don't? What are our leaders passionate about in ways that others aren't? And how are we building our business around that distinction, around that uniqueness, and around those passions? The second question, having decided what our unique purpose is, what we're here to do for the world, what the difference is that we make to our customers and to the people that we serve, The next question is our culture aligned to the unique difference we make? Are our leadership behaviors aligned with it? And is our culture a magnet for the kind of talent we need? So once you've articulated the reason for your existence, that's question number one is the key. This is what we're here to do. This is what we do really well. This is what we love doing. This is what we're passionate about doing. Once that's articulated, then you start looking at the culture. And you say, well, what are the key components of a culture that could deliver this unique difference? So in the case of Herb Keller at Southwest Airlines, a unique component of the culture is fun-loving people, people who know how to entertain others, people who like people who like being and communicating with people. So to what extent do these properties exist in our culture? In the case of Apple, people who love design and technology, people who want to make a difference, people who want to challenge the status quo, people who want to create products that haven't existed before, that nobody's thought of before. That's what we need in the culture. So you identify those components, and then you audit your culture very honestly. And this is such a crucial role of HR professionals, because you have a view of the company's culture, an unbiased view, a view across the entire enterprise, where you can look at the whole culture and you can say, being honest with ourselves, do we currently have in the culture the type of components that we need to have? And if we feel this misalignment, which there almost inevitably is, it's very rare that you'll find a company that articulates its purpose very clearly and has the right culture automatically. So if you're finding this isn't quite aligned, there's a certain difference we want to make. We want to make flying fun, but our culture is not a fun culture. We want to entertain people. We want to connect with people when they buy our product or they use our service. But our culture is not really one of connection. Our culture is not really one of communication. Our culture is not really one of liking people. You audit the culture, and if you find that there's misalignment, you move into question 3. And you understand that culture is an outcome. Culture is not an input. You can't just say, this must be our culture. You can't infuse a culture into an organization. Culture is the result of other things being in place. And the 2 primary elements that yield culture are leadership behaviors. How do our leaders act? Not what do they say. Not what do they say in their speeches. Not what does our PR say in the media. What do our leaders do? And B, behavioral reinforcement. What behavior in the organization gets reinforced by the way we manage and lead people? So going back to A, we need to identify leadership behaviors that undermine the desired culture. Do we see leaders doing things that undermine this cultural architecture that we need in order to deliver on our distinction, in order to live our purpose? How do we do that? What are those leadership behaviors? So we scan leadership behaviors. We watch our leaders so that we can give them feedback and say to them, what you just did doesn't support the kind of culture we're trying to build in order to deliver on our distinction. And that's, again, an area where HR professionals, no matter what part of HR they're in or how big or small the organization is, has a lens through which to observe leadership behavior and check its alignment with the kind of culture that we're trying to build. And B, have a look and see what behaviors are truly rewarded. Are people rewarded simply for making money, no matter how they do that? Are people rewarded only for results, irrespective of how they treat other people in the process? And if so, is that supportive of the culture we need in order to deliver on our distinction? And what behaviors are sanctioned? We just accept them. They're okay. We don't reward them, but we don't penalize them. And which are the behaviors that are penalized? Because when you have a cold clinical look at this question B, what behaviors are rewarded, what behaviors are sanctioned, and what behaviors are penalized, you get a sense of what leadership really thinks about people, what leadership really feels about people. And it's that either makes or breaks the ability to attract talent. The way leaders feel about their people either attracts talent or it repels talent. And once again, the HR professional is able to examine that, is able to watch that, is able to take a measure of distance in order to audit these actions and to check what it is that we reward and what it is that we penalize, and how aligned is that with the culture we're trying to build. And then the fourth question, is our culture a magnet for the kind of talent we need? We know now what kind of talent we need because we know what culture we want, we know what our distinction is and what we're trying to do, the difference we're trying to make. What is our current talent pool? Both its competence and its character needed to deliver on the difference. Now, this idea of character is an idea that I introduce and deal in some depth with in Lead by Greatness. The idea that for leadership and for developing culture, you need more than competence. You need character as well. And what makes the real difference between great leaders and leaders who are not that great is not their competence necessarily. It's their character. And if we use this model to try and help us, and so plot a competence and character on a graph. And if we say, what about somebody who's neither particularly competent nor has great character? They damage our reputation. These people are in danger of damaging our reputation because they don't deliver, they don't serve customers well, and internally they don't have character. They can do things that could damage our reputation, and they could be quite a dangerous element in an organization. So we want to identify, do we have people who are neither particularly competent, nor do they have particularly great character? If we have people who have really great character, but they're not particularly competent, well, they're not going to damage our reputation because they care about our reputation, and they have character. They're not going to do anything that lacks integrity, but they will damage our performance. They will slow us down. They'll drag the momentum and the velocity of the organization because they're not getting things done, they're not getting things completed, they're not getting things accomplished. And then you've got the people who are exceptionally competent, they just don't have character. And those are the people who won't damage our reputation because they serve their customers, they deliver to their customers, the shareholders like them because they're delivering to shareholders, but they can damage our culture. And in the long term, that can undermine our distinction. If we don't have the culture we need in order to deliver on what makes us unique and distinct, if we don't have the culture that manifests the purpose of our own existence, we don't have that sustainable capability, and we certainly don't have the ability to be a talent magnet for the kind of people we want to attract. And this is a very hard group of people to manage because they are delivering. Jack Welch said perhaps the hardest thing he ever had to do as a leader is fire high performers who don't live the values. High performers who are not demonstrating the character needed for the kind of culture we're trying to build in an organization. To have to fire those people or discipline those people is one of the hardest things for a manager or leader to do. But it needs to be done because otherwise we're not going to build a talent magnet culture. And of course, our most inspirational quadrant of all is when we're able to have people who are exceptionally competent and they're also people of high character. It's not an either or. It's not you either have competence or you have character. It's fully possible to have character and competence. And in fact, when you have people who have character but they don't have all the necessary competence, you can develop them. You can move them from that top left quadrant to the top right quadrant. You can't move people from the bottom right quadrant. If people don't have character, you can't give them character. You can develop people's character. If they have character, you can help them develop it. And you can certainly help people become more competent at what they do. So you can shift people into the right-hand side, but you need to start with people of character. And so you want to ask yourself, as you're looking at your talent in the organization, to think not only of the competence, of the ability of that talent to deliver. You also want to look at the character of that talent, the ability of that talent to build teams, the ability of that talent to attract other talent. You want to look at who these people are in a deeper sense, in a deeper way. Now, these 4 questions, which is a way to get started, and it's a very easy way to get started, to start the conversations, to trigger people's thinking, to compel people to find answers to these questions. They're questions, and you don't have to have all the answers. But as the experts who your organization looks to for guidance about talent strategies, you do need to be asking the questions. if you know